Intense flames pulsating like fireworks this morning in Lake County. 8 people injured, 3 in critical condition. A town in shock. Residents were forced from their homes and some workers were feared dead after explosions ripped right through a gas plant in Tavares.
I don't know, it was scary. I just thought it was Armageddon, the end of the world and all that stuff. It was kind of scary.
Neighbors outside, they're screaming, hollering, running around. We had no idea what was going on.
Something set off the explosions late last night at the Blue Rhino plant south of Lake Dora. Evacuation orders were lifted just a few hours ago, and we watched a news conference live here on News 13 where the very latest was given to us, and we will give you that information in just a little bit here in our team coverage from the scene in Lake County and in Orlando, where those who've been critically injured are being treated at this hour.
He told us that 24 people were inside the plant at the time of this explosion, and then he told us that 15 people are still unaccounted for. He told us they know 7 people were hurt in this, and most of them were airlifted to various hospitals in this area, some to Gainesville, some to Orlando. Some were able to drive themselves to a nearby hospital. And he also told us that 2 people were able to just escape the plant, just walk out of the plant or run out of the plant at the time. But another thing that he told us that just really stood out to me, he told us that 53,000 20-pound containers or barrels of this gas was inside the plant as recently as a few days ago. Joel?
A Central Florida community, an entire county rocked literally after a massive gas plant explosion. The explosion happened late last night at the Blue Rhino plant in Tavares, and we've been bringing you the very latest all night long and now all morning long. News 13's Dave DeMarco joining us live once again near the scene. And Dave, a breakdown of exactly what happened. A news conference just wrapped up moments ago.
Yeah, about 20 minutes ago was our first chance to speak to Tavares Fire Chief, Mr. Keith, about exactly what had happened. We got the new numbers now, 8 people that were injured, but the good news, it sounds like about 16 other people that got out of this fire unharmed. 24 people at the Blue Rhino plant when that fire started about 10:30 last night. And we knew right back there, we see a little bit of smoke still going there, that there were 53,000 20-gallon cylinders in there, and we're told most of those exploded and were actually some of them sent flying off the property. But the good news is that there were also 3 bulk cylinders that they used to fill the propane, and actually all of those canisters on there. Each of those had 90,000 gallons of propane, and those didn't ignite. You see the video, what it looked like last night, and you can only imagine if 90,000 gallons had all ignited at once. 60 firefighters out here working throughout the night have got that fire pretty much under control out at this point. Now what they're going to be doing is, of course, trying to figure out what started it. We're told the State Fire Marshal's office is going to be out here looking into that. What they said at this point is they believe that it was perhaps some sort of mechanical failure coupled with some sort of human error. Now, as far as any human error that they did mention in that press conference just a few minutes ago, said the one thing that he mentioned is that perhaps someone was to open a valve to actually start putting some water on the fire. The chief said he understood, though, why the people would be so quick to get out of there. In fact, he said at his own house, about 3 miles away when these explosions started at 10:30 last night, he thought that someone had actually crashed a car into his house. They said that there were just dozens of 911 calls, people thinking the same thing, but it was all from this fire and those explosions back there at the plant. But once again, 8 people injured, 3 critically, but 16 people came to this gas station right where we're standing and weren't hurt. Reporting live in Tavares, Dave DeMarco, News 13.
The most seriously injured victims were flown all the way from Lake County to the heart of downtown Orlando to the Orlando Regional Medical Center. News 13's Jeff Allen is there with new details about the victims believed to be workers at the plant.
I bet those 3 workers critically injured in this, taken here to the Orlando Regional Medical Center in Orlando. 2 of them airlifted through medical helicopter overnight. A third was driven here by ambulance from Lake County. Now that 3rd man arrived here about 4 o'clock this morning from Florida Waterman Hospital. We're told he was originally treated there, but then taken on to ORMC for further treatment. They have a burn unit here, and it's a level 1 trauma hospital. They can better deal with severe burns and severe injuries that these men are dealing with. Now, all three men, again, in critical condition here. Now, several other people were taken to other hospitals, to Florida Waterman Hospital, where that worker was treated and released. Another two went to hospitals in Ocala and Gainesville. Again, 8 people hurt in total, 3 critical, and all 3 of those people are now here being treated here at Orlando Regional Medical Center in Orlando. In Orlando, Jeff Allen, News 13.
You know, at one point things got so bad in the area, residents within a half-mile radius of the explosion, they had to get out. They were evacuated. That evacuation order, though, has been lifted. But as you can imagine, the neighborhood's still on edge. Let's go back now to Tavares with News 13's Natalie Tolomeo is standing by with how this blast impacted the community.
Yeah, Beth, I was at the temporary shelter set up at a church in downtown Tavares as some residents who were forced out of their homes arrived. I was also there a short time after, around 2:30 this morning, in fact, when they were notified that evacuation had been lifted. Workers with the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, they got together. They provided residents who wanted to go to this shelter at the church with water and snacks, and were prepared to set up cots and serve them breakfast. Definitely prepared for the worst, hoping for the best. That's what they got after that evacuation was lifted. Now, they were describing what they saw. They described it as the sky looking like a sunset. And a viewer actually sent us some video showing that sky painted a faint orange color with smoke just everywhere in sight. Also, people telling me that were evacuated, when they came outside of their house, they could see those cylinders of propane shooting in the air. They described it as 4th of July fireworks, and they were just very scared, but coming together as a community and hoping for the best. So again, that evacuation notice has been lifted as of 2:30 this morning, and residents are back in their homes, the homes that were evacuated about a mile to a half a mile away from the Blue Rhino plant. Reporting on scene, I'm Natalie Tolomeo, News 13.
All right, thanks so much. And more new video coming in from the scene. Of course, the latest on the conditions of those who were injured. Our team coverage from the scene of the explosion and the hospital continues all morning long right here on News 13 on air and also online at cfnews13.com.
Well, just when things seem to be getting sort of back to normal here outside the Blue Rhino plant, there was another scare here this afternoon as they discovered that a 90,000-pound propane tank that had not exploded last night had some sort of leak, perhaps that was caused by one of those canisters that was blown from the scene. We actually saw them all the way across the street. People saying they were like fireworks last night. The fire chief himself saying in 36 years he'd never seen anything like it. Still, he said the situation could have been worse. Explosions shook the homes of people all over Lake County, including the Tavares fire chief.
It truly sounded like a car hit our house. So I went downstairs, and then my wife called me and said, "You better come up here." We looked out our back windows and we could see the glow coming over the trees, and it was pulsating like fireworks. And I knew at that moment that's where a Blue Rhino was.
Blue Rhino is a propane plant that refurbishes and fills 20-pound propane canisters typically used for gas barbecue grills. Tuesday morning, an estimated 53,000 of those exploded canisters were spread all over the Tavares plant. 24 employees were inside when the fire started late Monday night.
According to the Blue Rhino management, everyone whom they knew to be there last night who was scheduled to work has been accounted for.
8 people were hospitalized. But that was still welcome news compared to the initial panic when no one knew where the other employees were.
I was thinking that, it was going to be, like I said, for the worst, that it would be more or less a search rescue mission in the morning.
Instead, the focus is on figuring out exactly what caused the fire and whether safety protocols were followed. A fire suppression system meant to protect 3 90,000-pound tanks didn't go off. Fortunately, the tanks didn't ignite.
We think that the last person out is supposed to flip the switch to start those water flows, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't have been there either. I'd have been heading out this way.
The State Fire Marshal's office has been called in to investigate. At this point, no foul play is suspected. What we do know is that these canisters were being put on an assembly line, and someone hit the emergency stop on that assembly line. They don't know right now if there was some sort of equipment failure or perhaps human error. In Tavares, Dave DeMarco, News 13.
Tonight we're hearing from a family whose home was hit by a flying canister. As News 13 Saul Signs reports, the tank burned right through their wall. Saul?
This is about the size of the canister debris which crashed through the roof of that house. Now, the homeowners were not home at the time. They were a few yards away, able to see the explosion and the aftermath. Part of the gas canister burned right through the home Diana and Herbert Welder were hoping to move into.
Yeah, it's amazing they didn't catch it on fire and burn it to the ground because it went right through the roof and melted into the carpet.
This new home and another home are just a few hundred yards behind the Blue Rhino plant. This is where the couple and their children were staying when Herbert says the explosion shook the floor.
Saw the tanks blowing up in the air, and it sounded like bombs going off. And when they go off, it sounded, you could hear them zinging through the air.
We stood straight up and ran outside, and everything was like bright orange. It was like daylight. You could see everything.
The heat was unbearable when I come out my front door.
The welders say they saw the ball of fire rising 100 feet in the air, and through that ball of fire, canisters like these were shooting through.
Yeah, you could see like a red ball going up through the smoke, and then it'd come out and it'd just glow, and you could see it shoot off for a little bit, you know, and then it'd kind of go out. And when it went out, you couldn't really tell where they was landing, you know.
Now, the home is so new, it is not insured against disasters like these. I want to show you something. Those are two canisters which landed in front of the home. Homeowners say that if Blue Rhino does not move, they will. In Tavares, Saul Signs, News 13.
Right now, still many concerns about last night's huge explosion at the Blue Rhino plant in Lake County. More than 50,000 gas canisters exploded late last evening. This is Sky 13 video of them littered all around the Tavares plant. And many of those flaming tanks actually hit homes and cars. 8 people were hospitalized, 4 of them severely burned. We'll take you to the hospital where some of those burn victims are right now. We're going to hear from a family who actually had a flaming tank fly through their wall. But first, News 13's Kelly Cook is getting answers about what sparked this explosion. Kelly?
OSHA found a serious violation here back in 2011. They say it was a faulty air nozzle. Management fixed it right there on the spot, but we found out OSHA has not been back since. But as for what caused the explosion that happened here last night, officials are thinking it was either human error or a problem with the equipment. The orange flames that filled the night sky in Tavares Monday has now been replaced with cleanup crews. Thousands of these 20-pound canisters filled with propane gas exploded. In the aftermath, crews found another issue. One of the 3 larger 30,000-pound tanks was leaking.
Apparently, sometime during last night's early morning's explosion, that one of the tanks probably were hit with the flying debris.
That tank was drained and the materials inside hauled off site. 8 of the 24 workers inside the plant at the time of the explosion were rushed to area hospitals, some in critical condition. The Blue Rhino parent company, Ferrogas spokesman, says that many of those workers were likely refurbishing cylinders or loading them onto pallets and vehicles at the time of the fire. The town mayor, Robert Wolf, says on a typical shift they would fill 4,000 to 5,000 canisters with the gas used in home grills.
I believe there's around 50 to 60 people employed here, so for a small town, that's a nice industrial operation.
It's unclear when the plant will reopen, but a spokesperson from the company says they are bringing in equipment from all over the country to minimize disruptions.
Like the disruptions we anticipate will only be in the Orlando area, and as early as tomorrow we should be back up and running with very little difficulty, so folks can keep grilling with confidence.
After the 2011 violation, OSHA did not inspect the facility in 2012 or 2013. But now they've opened an investigation into the explosion that rocked this tiny city late Monday night. Today, the FBI, ATF, and local officials were out here investigating to find out exactly what happened. Reporting here in Lake County, in Tavares, Kelly Cook, News 13.